Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa again. Round two today. So, welcome back to those of you who joined us with our connection with Yana earlier on, my friend from Namibia. Wow, super interesting chat. If you guys missed that one, go and have a look at it if you can, because she's just come back from the field. She's doing a PhD and she's spending time with Namibia's original indigenous, I call them the First People tribes, and she's just gaining so much knowledge, information. It's just amazing. So I had an awesome chat with her early on. Welcome to Monday with BRICE, Marvelous Monday. But before we go ahead, I want to just say thank you to our sponsor for the day, who is a spooky too, frequency medicine, as I call it. Spooky 2 they supply home Rife machines. And guys, I know you've probably heard me say this a million times, and you will hear me say this a lot more times. These little machines really are incredible. They come in different sizes for different needs. I've got the little one. My mother swears by it. I've not had a moment to use it. Thankfully, I don't need it. But I really see the difference in her just for the little ones as well. These are their frequencies are really created in harmony with nature. So you're really getting the natural healing medicine. So if you haven't already, please check out their website. And if you're interested in getting any of these home Rife machines, you can use my name, Chantelle, and you will get a 5% discount. So I must say, I love this alternative healing. I really, really, really do, because it's so much more beneficial than the allopathic. And there's other stuff as well. Not just this, but I mean, people are going to find what they need to find, and it's what resonates with them. But it's really amazing when you see how people start opting for the more natural remedies. At the end of the day, I always maintain your body's designed to heal itself from no matter what. I'm not saying I'm in that place yet where I can heal myself from no matter what, but I certainly have healed myself from some very grueling deficiencies and imbalances in my body, for sure. So I definitely know the power of the human spirit that resides within us all. But, sometimes we need a little help. And when we invest in something that is more natural and you start taking your own health into your own hands, and you decide that you don't need any things like that anymore, like chemicals in your body, and you start choosing a more natural way, you'll see how these things actually, because they're designed to harmonize your own energy. So when your own energy is flowing in an harmonic way, your body heals of itself. So you don't need all sorts of things. But of course, your mindset has got to be right. You've got to be prepared to accept something different. And, as Jesus, who was the ultimate healer, always understood that when healing occurred, he always saw his clients in their full health, and B, the person had to believe that they were able to be healed. There's that. So we also have to change our mindset with stuff like this, which for me is amazing. We truly are living in exciting times, guys. I really think so. New things are available to us. There's AI, and as much as what AI can be a demon in our lives, so to speak, it can also be amazing. Because, with technology and stuff, we couldn't be having these. Without technology, we couldn't be having these conversations and these shows. It's amazing what we've been able to do. But yes, we have to act responsibly. Anyway, enough from me. So, Bryce, you are here with the emerald tablets again.
I apologize, guys. I was saying to Shanti, I've got my Biden tissue right here because that's how expensive thing is. I'm very congested today, you guys, so I apologize if you see me rubbing my nose even more. We had a crazy weekend, and I want to say a special shout out. I know our schedule got messed up last week. We've had crazy weather here in the southeast of the United States, so I hope that everybody, and in the Midwest, it's gone into the Midwest. I know a lot of people have been without power for a long time, and we're getting into the grueling heat of the summer. And so I really hope that you guys are all, if obviously, if you're still without power, you're probably not able to watch us right now, but when you catch the repeat, I hope that you guys are all well. And please know that us in Atlanta are thinking about you. We've had some power issues as well, but we get our power back relatively quickly because we are in a city. So a lot of stuff's going on. I know you guys had some crazy thunderstorms in South Africa. It's just wild times to be alive, you guys.
South Africa doesn't need thunderstorms to have power outs. You guys
No,
get
yeah.
that.
Hey, guys, cut us a break here. We are now only getting 2 hours of load shedding a day. But I really think that's because I think elections are coming up, I heard. I don't even know.
Oh, so they're going to make it not as bad for you guys.
So now they're making it, or something dodgy is going on. But now instead of suddenly we were getting 10 hours of cuts a day, now we're down to 2 hours again. So something, the new minute, because of course the old CEO of ESCOM was fired, and I mean they've really dragged his name through the mud, and I mean these guys are such horrific lizards. I'm telling you, what they've done is just horrific. Now they brought a new guy in who's now part of the ANC. You see, the other one wasn't part of the ANC. So the new one is part of the ANC. And the last I heard, we were buying some second-hand generator from the Netherlands that was going to power up the whole of South Africa.
That'll do it. That's what's going to
work. I'm sorry, I don't know. But then also I know that Ramaphosa, or Ramanokio, who I like to call him as, because that's how, he's not my president, but he runs the country, or he's the mouthpiece for South Africa. Him and his brother-in-law, Patrice Motsepe, the two of the richest men, have done some deal with the Rockefellers, I do believe, on their green energy or green power, which has been banned in the rest of the world. But hey, they will implement it here. And I know, I saw an article. I mean, these dudes got paid millions and billions for this deal. It's like, so they are so rotten.
Are partnering with the Rockefellers. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, we know they're thick with them. So I don't know what's going to happen, because now apparently they're siding with Putin in this whole war, or this impending war. So now I get lots of people cross with me because South Africa is siding with Putin. Guys, I don't keep up with these things. I'm everyone's friend, I promise you. I'm not going to be siding with anyone. I think it's disgusting what is happening in the world all around. I think we're being controlled by forces that are very sinister, and they're not natural, most of them. So that's why it's up to us to keep our discernment, stay cool with each other, practice what you need to do to raise your own frequency and raise your own consciousness, because that's what they're saying. The one advantage we have over these guys is that we have consciousness, and they don't. So as we raise, in other words, a soul, your consciousness is birthed from the experiences of your soul, so to speak. How have you chosen to experience life? Do you choose to take the dark road or the light road? So that determines your consciousness, basically. So when you have a lighter consciousness, that's what they want. But also when we raise above that, that's when it's game over. They can't do anything. In other words, when we wake up, when we say no, when we decide for ourselves that this is crap.
It's so interesting, and that's basically what the Emerald Tablets are saying. That's what the Law of One is saying, and that's what I want to it's kind of, again, what Thoth has been saying is, when we look to leaders, whenever we're putting in ourselves to look to a leader to give us the answers or tell us what to do. So if we're thinking Putin's definitely the good guy, or Trump is definitely the good guy, or some people, Biden's the good. Whenever we're putting ourselves in a place of enslavement, And enslavement is a fourth density negative path. It's a negative path. They enslave. That's what the fourth density. I know Mr. Fox, it's going to be a couple weeks before he's back, but when he comes back, we can talk more about that, the path of enslavement. So it's the opposite of that. It's the path of your own empowerment and being able to live within the world and, you know, be accommodating to what you need to be in order to have a peaceful existence, but also not, your peace can't be dictated by what Trump is doing or by what Putin's doing or because we don't really know. At the end of the day, we don't really know for sure what's happening behind closed doors. All you know for sure is what you're doing and what you are deciding. And I will say too, something one of my teacher in India always says is like humor, having a sense of humor, that is the highest level of spirituality. And I know that a lot of these crimes that are being committed are nothing to laugh about. But the fact that we can come on these shows and with our audience and have a sense of humor and kind of laugh at the predicament we're in already starts to show you who is watching. Because I know we've got these people on that watch us, our friends that watch us who all have wicked senses of humor too, because I see them in the comment section and they're all really funny people. And so enjoying that sense of humor, being able to like seriously work on yourself, but also find joy in a comedy, you know, a comedy of errors of what's happening. Before we hit live, I was saying, you know, when I leave my body one day, I'm gonna get up and be like, I need to speak to the manager, like who left me unsupervised when I planned my syllabus. You know, being able to laugh at your circumstances, and even though there is seriousness there, and that's one thing the darkness can't do, right? Have you ever seen a narcissist try to be funny? It's pathetic. They don't know how to laugh. They don't know how to. And so that's something that a souled person, a person with a soul can do, is find the humor in situations. And so, yeah, you're right. I laugh when you're like lighting with Putin. I'm like, we don't know anymore, guys. We just have no idea. Only thing you can know is who you are. And that's what my grandfather used to say that all the time. My grandfather would tell us, his grandkids, he'd be like, the only person you can control is you. The only thing that you have control over in this life is you. And that's it. And that's what I love about the teachings of Thoth and the law of one, is that it really whittles it down. Yes, there are evil. Two things are happening right now at the same time. There are two harvestings going on at the same time, the darkness and the light. And you, as a third density being, get to choose. That's your power. You get to choose which one you're going to follow, the darkness or the light. It's there, either is for the taking for you. And that's what Thoth is saying as well. Now, I know we skipped a week last week because I think my power was out because of a storm, but we were talking about Emerald Tablet 8, which we read all of Thoth's Emerald Tablet 8. We're going to look at Doriel's translations because I find Doriel's translation and commentary to be pretty interesting. I don't know how long ago Doriel translated and wrote his commentary, but I find it fascinating because I would assume if I had read these like 10 years ago, I probably would not get out of them what I'm getting out of them now, because of what we are seeing so obviously displayed in the world, right? And so it's interesting to kind of look at Doriel's commentary as well, just to see this person's perspective. Now, if you guys remember the Key of Mysteries, which is Emerald Tablet 8, I want to remind you guys that once again, Thoth has this uncanny ability, and it's kind of, it reminds me a lot of the Hindu text as well, because the Hindu texts do this too. Like the Bhagavad Gita is really good about doing this as well, where you're seeing the story unfold, but simultaneously he's telling you both the macro experience and the micro experience. And that's something that we've noticed in every single tablet of Thoth, where every verse can be seen as an outward experience and also an inward experience. We've talked about the chakra system. We've talked about astro traveling and how you can't, if you try to escape this world through leaving your body early, that it's really not going to work, that you can't leapfrog. You can't, people say, oh, I'm already in the fifth dimension. Well, no, we got to go to fourth. You can't leapfrog. You have to go through every single step in consciousness. And I want to make that very clear. I think people get confused when we talk about the different densities, or when Mr. Fox talks about the different densities. Animals, for the most part, being second density. Humans, for the most part, being third density. Third density is the density of choice, right? They're different. There's different purposes for different densities. It does not mean that a third density being is more important than a second density being. That's not what that means. Is a second grader child more important than a fourth grader child? No, they're both children at a different level, right? And so I want to make that clear. So when we think about leapfrogging into things, as Thoth was speaking about in the eighth, that's an ego thing, and the ego is the false sense of self. Like to that, and we're kind of in a world, as I was just saying, where we want accolades, we want to be the leader, we want to have a pecking order. But the pecking order is coming from a fourth density negative understanding, whereas the fourth density positive is social memory complex, where everyone works together. So I want to make that very clear, regardless of whether you're a second density being, a third density being, or a fourth density being. There's different purposes for each level of consciousness, but they're all equally valuable. I hope that makes sense. So don't ever try to leap.
Well, I don't think, I mean, we could not be third density beings unless we started in 1D.
Exactly.
So and I think that's what makes us human beings unique, incidentally, is the fact that if you look at first density or first dimension, where it's really minerals and water. Second is plant life, animals, minerals, water, etc. Third is with humans. So it's telling me one thing, and which is probably why these guys are after our consciousness, if you will, is because we've actually evolved from that. So we could not be in our human evolution stage unless we began as first density. So that's exactly what I say. So this is why we are so important in 3D right now, because we have spent billions of years evolving our consciousness to the point that we have now. You see, and that's what we didn't just enter here, and that's what makes us so valuable on Earth as humans, because only on Earth did we have this experience. Nowhere else in the star system has this experience been available to any other beings, only those of us who are humans. So we started with grade 1, grade 2, and now we're in grade 3, right? So some of us are gonna, and I don't want to use the word graduate, because we came from that little bitty, teeny bitsy. And I want to tell you something. I actually, a couple of years ago, and my prayer was to God was that I don't believe we go to hell and burn eternally in the hellfires. There might be those of us who believe that to be true and might experience that for a while until you realize you don't have to. But let's say there's a really evil being that just can't stop being evil. How is that dealt with? And it was given to me in such a beautiful, simplistic form. I was shown that the soul goes right back to being a little blade of grass or a plant or a flower, which makes perfect sense to me. It just made perfect sense. And especially now when you think about that, because energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. God cannot destroy and does not choose to destroy his creation or her creation, right? So if that creation is not working in this form, let's take you back to basics. Let's show you how to get back into that beautiful creative space where you go back to the beginning and you learn how to grow. You learn how to breathe the air. Whatever it is a plant flower does, you know what I'm saying? And then you get the chance to do it. Again, it can't be another way. It can't.
Well,
and sorry, I just want to say that until such time that we don't need this experience on 3D anymore, like in other words, the enslavement or the entrapment, if you will, by those who can control us. The only reason they control us is because they can. It's that simple. I wouldn't say we let them, because we've on many ways, obviously understanding what Earth is, and those who are trying to enslave this consciousness, if you will, the agenda, it's more like done very unconsciously, and it's done through lots of genetic family bloodlines over many, many, many years and centuries. So it's kind of inbred in a lot of us. But the time right here is that we have the opportunity now that, especially since the 60s, right? We in the from about the 60s, we got to understand we are multidimensional. We are able to actually understand our psychology as human beings. So we started now, and we've progressed to looking within and understanding we are actually multidimensional, and we are so much more than matter. So when we understand spirit becomes more than matter, we understand that in our bodies we choose to experience a certain level of consciousness, and through that we get to evolve, and we get to choose right now. Do we? You see, this is what we have here: free will and choice. Do we go into the temptation because we've still forgotten who we belong to, because everyone belongs to God, but we've got to remember that. So those who've forgotten are going to go into the negative densities, and those who remember, and we've all forgotten, people, all of us. My spirit remembers millions of lifetimes. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit when I say that, but if you know me, I tend to exaggerate when it comes to certain things, just for dramatic effect, okay? I've definitely forgotten who the hell I am. And it's only because I've forgotten and I've now remembered that I can actually work and empathize with people who've forgotten who they are, because it's all in us to remember. It is all in us to remember. But we have to reach a certain stage of understanding and remembering that.
Yeah. And with that being said, too, guys, that's what I'm talking about when I say, all these people are like, I'm already in the fifth dimension. No, that's what Thoth was speaking about in the Emerald Tablet 8. Part of it was that, no, you can get trapped. Like, you can't leapfrog. You can't skip a level. We have to go through fourth density. We have to. And there's a purpose. There's joy in fourth density. There's experience.
It's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. We're not taking the, and I'm loving what you said, Leila. Temptation can be fun.
Yeah.
You bet. And I gotta tell you, I succumbed to temptation many times. And it's so fun. And the only reason was because I know it's not going to keep me there for long. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to enjoy that moment for everything that it is. But then you got to also realize that you stepping back. You know what I'm saying? And then you can actually follow that other path.
And anytime you give into temptation or hit an obstacle and you've learned something from that experience, then it really wasn't anything that was going to hurt you.
Exactly. Temptation is not always a bad thing. Sometimes temptation can lead you out of your comfort zone, into a good place. That you can, so there's good temptation, and then there's not so good temptation.
Right.
Temptation is good. Sometimes the universe comes and it lures you out of that. God is very good with his ways
God's
of doing
clever.
things.
It's almost like he created everything, right?
He knows all the tricks.
He knows all the tricks. So and the temptation thing, don't try to bypass your experience because you're trying to achieve some level. There's no level. Like, I was saying this yesterday to my yoga class. I was like, because in the Ashtanga practice, there's some really crazy binds and crazy things. And I was like, listen, I love, there's a YouTube. Listen, Linda, listen, Linda. Listen. When you catch a bind, finally, when you catch a crazy bind, or when you finally get your leg behind your head in Ekapada Shirshasana, you know what happens? You get your leg behind your head. Like, balloons don't fall from the sky. Like, God doesn't come down and annoy you.
It's a personal challenge. It's a personal journey that you need for yourself.
Exactly.
Is that each person needs that experience for themselves. That's the whole thing. It's how we internalize that. So each person is going to need whatever they need for them. We go on our own path.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of this life. And we do what we need for our satisfaction.
And that's what I was. So it's the same can be applied in life. Like, your journey, in this life is not going to be the same. We saw this earlier in the Emerald Tablets, where Thoth was like, do not try to think you understand somebody else's journey. We're seeing a lot of the Bible verses that we think are from the Bible are actually in the Emerald Tablets. Like, don't judge not, lest ye be judged. Don't, we see all these friends and family members who are still, quote unquote, asleep. But at the end of the day, their journey is not your journey, and it still doesn't mean anything if they're still being kind and a kind person, and they're just as conscious as you are with the spirituality. And so, and with that being said, like when we're moving into this place of potentially bumping up to fourth density, don't sit there and try to like leapfrog to fifth already when there's so much beauty in fourth too. Like it's not, and so I just wanted to bring that, because Thoth did speak about that last week, where he talked about how he tried to escape. He tried to take the easy way out and it didn't work. And he was giving a huge warning against that. Like you need to ride this roller coaster. You need to go up yesterday was my niece's 9th birthday, and she was so proud of herself because she went to Six Flags, an amusement park here in Atlanta, and she did the upside down ride, and she was so proud of herself. Listen, you got to take every single loop in that roller coaster. You can't bypass it. And there's fun in there. There's joy in that. I laugh about how hard being a human is, but there's some really great stuff about this place, right? Like French fries are awesome, and there's some beautiful places to see and experience, and being in a human body and having that nervous system, and loving someone and being in that, like there's so many. So we don't want to bypass because we think, because that's an ego response. Be like, oh, I'm already in fifth. Well, no, honey, you're not. You're still in third density. Don't bypass. Enjoy where you are right now and be cool with that. Be okay with that, because there's some really great things in third density too, right? There's really great things that are here with us now. So the love of your grandchildren.
Totally.
You're so anyway, I wanted to remind people of that. So watch yourself. And again, that is an ego response. That is thinking I'm better than someone because I want to put myself higher than, when all souls are equal in the eyes of God. That, the animals that are second, although when Mr. Fox comes back on in a couple weeks, ask him about monkeys. Apparently chimpanzees and monkeys are from Mars. He told me that the other day, and I was like, interesting. So there are some animals that are third density as well. Dolphins are, whales are, but like my dog, for example, my little boy from India, his soul is just as valuable as my soul, even though he's a second density being. And my job as third density is to envelop him with my love. And so that he starts to develop that self-awareness so that he has the choice to then go to third. So don't ever think that just because something is fifth or sixth or whatever, that it's better. It's not. It's just different. It's just a different experience. So don't gyp yourself out of, don't let your ego gyp yourself out of having an incredible experience is what he was kind of saying here as well. All right, so let's look at Doriel's. So again, you guys, I know it's been a couple weeks, but if you missed Emerald Tablet 8, just go on Aquarius Rising Africa and listen. After this is over, go back and re-listen to the reading of Thoth, because he did talk about shapeshifters. Y'all remember that? He did talk about lizard people. Isn't that hysterical? That written right after Atlantis, and he's already being like, so this might sound weird, guys, but they're lizard people. And now we're like, oh yeah, totally. Yep, absolutely there are. So this is Doriel's commentary and translation of the 8th tablet. Thoth had attained the power of mastership, and with it the ability to enter interlocking world and take on form, and also the ability to enter the inner space of the 4th dimension. So because, and that's again, when Mr. Fox is back on, and I actually asked Mr. Fox like a week ago if he had read the Emerald Tablets, and I told him I'd let him borrow my copy because there's so much in here that mirrors the law of one. When we get to the 4th density, from what I understand of what Mr. Fox has told me, is that there is going to be a lot of a social memory complex. So what they're talking about, we're going to be able to instantly heal ourselves, like what Shanti was saying. We're going to be able to, we won't need a med bed because our mind will be able to be like, oh, I can just fix myself, so we'll understand this about ourselves and our consciousness. In symbols, the keys of wisdom are found. Only those who search for the hidden meanings find the way. That was powerful. Only those who search, who look beneath the surface, who contemplate, they're the ones who find the way. There is a constant, which can also say, people who just kind of go about life and follow the rules without questioning. Are they finding the way? I don't know. That's their soul's contract, but it kind of gives you that dichotomy there, right? There is a constant change and evolution in man, both as a material and spiritual, as he develops in consciousness, which is formless. As he develops in consciousness, which is formless in the ultimate, finally he attains to that cosmic cycle where nothing material manifests in form. And that was interesting. I can't remember. I think it was the tablet before where, when we get to that point where we're in a cosmic cycle where nothing material manifests in form. And Thoth was kind of saying, like, everybody wants to be in this state of where they're just a consciousness, right? But when you don't know death, you also don't know life. And so there's lack of experience in that state of just being formless, right? And so that's why I'm saying don't skip the steps of being in a body and being in an experience, because even though there are hardships, that's how you understand joy. Because you know death, that's how you know life, right? It's that dichotomy. So he's saying, like, this is, think about this for a moment. Like, don't try to rush through this, because where you are is a beautiful place. Thoth commands them to search out the mysteries of the inner earth and learn of the balance of earth, the pyramid of force, which is composed of the essence of that force which causes Adam to cast off particles of themselves. Man must find the pyramid and stand either in body or projection before receiving its universal force. And we know that the pyramid is used a lot. I mean, Ra talks about this in the Law of One. And we know that, again, as we say almost every episode, but if you're new, or for those in the back who have never heard this before, you can hear this. Darkness can't create anything. That's science. That's like science 101, right? Like, darkness can't create anything. Only things with light can create. So even though the powers that be have manipulated the pyramid was created as something really beautiful and powerful and positive. And it's your body as well. This is the representation of the human body too. And so that's why he's saying, like, being able to harness up through the body, which is the chakras, the sushumna. It's all these things that we speak about, especially in prior tablets, and that we've talked about even before we started reading the Emerald.
Yeah, they draw energy upwards and outwards. They draw it from the earth, cleanse it, and release it into the atmosphere. But on that note, we're just going to play an ad. So hold that thought.
In 2013, Spooky released Spooky 2 to the world. 10 years is a long time to change many things, but customer first has steadfastly remained our creed. Spooky 2 has released more than 10 products, bringing health to over 100,000 families.
Well, I'm much better with the Spooky 2. Well, I have an XM and I have a Gen X also. Going between detox and pain relief, I'll just go over to the Spooky 2 and just dial in the pain relief for for gallbladder colic and things, and it takes it away immediately. This is drug-free. It's an amazing piece of equipment.
I have used the Spooky to help with my eyes, and I've had good luck with that. A couple of months ago, I lived in an area that got flooded. I went in a hole. So I got back to the house, and I sat for 2 hours, and when I got up, I could hardly move my leg. And I hurried and went in, and I got my foot all hooked up. And I also sleep with the scaler. The next morning I got up and it was like my feet hit the floor, and I was like, okay. And I had no issue. It was amazing to me that how much that really did help me, and just was fine.
We have established a high quality brand and put great effort into serving our customers. We have done our best to deliver our customers the safest, happiest, and most satisfying experience. We have built a bridge between customers and ourselves. Spooky 2 is entering more families, allowing a greater number of people leave their sufferings behind. The world is bound together with love. Spooky will continue to spread love wherever we go.
Speaking of vibrations, that was actually perfect to put that in there, because God works in very, very funny ways. So anyway, that actually matches kind of what The vibrational healing. Okay. Anyway.
Perfect.
We see you, spirit. We see you. So Thoth commands to enter the blue lighted temple, which is in the great hall of Amenti, where the seven sit, which we know, again, that dichotomy between the macro and the micro. There is a hall of Amenti under the earth after the Atlantis fell, but that's also referring to your own body, where your chakras sit. And you can see, we talked about in past tablets, how these are greater energy forces that have more knowledge than we're actually aware of. So it's kind of the macro, and also going inside internally into the micro. Man is both body and consciousness, but the consciousness, the flame, must absorb the body, the earth. Again, that we see this in Hinduism and in the yoga texts, that the body is the Shakti of the Shiva, of the soul. So it's the expression of the soul. It's the experience. It's not the soul, but it's the experience of the soul. And that's why the body is the most important tool that you will ever encounter when it comes to your spiritual development.
It's the creation. It's the creation. It's your soul's creation. There is no separation.
Yeah.
So it's like the soul comes down from 99 dimension and then slows itself down into 3D. So it creates this beautiful meat suit, but the expression of spirit. And remember also how many lives you've lived and what you've learned in your lives, whether it's here or elsewhere, is also going to be carried within your consciousness. And that oozes out of you.
Yep, that's it. And we see that in the Sophia code too, the spiritual DNA of life. And think about this too, guys. So think about the Shakti of the soul. So you have your mom and your dad. We all have I know in contemporary conversations, they don't want us to believe we have a mother and a father, but
yeah.
But we
exactly.
do. We do. So you have your mom and your dad, and you've got DNA. So if we look at the DNA, the physical expression, the Shakti, think about all the people, all the human lives that live in that egg and in that sperm that are coming together to make you. You could pull from all sorts of different experiences for your soul to have that expression, but your soul picked the DNA experience and match that you have now, right? You might have siblings that look very different from you. I have a cousin, a redhead, and it was our great grandfather that was redhead. That's how long it took for that to pop out. It's like his soul needed that experience, whatever that meant for him. And so if you look at the magnitude of that, it's so unbelievable. And also within the DNA hides experiences of your ancestors. So the inherited karma. So your soul could have been like, you know what? I had a great-great-great-grandma who really struggled with attachment issues. And I'm going to pull from that because I feel like my soul could be refined in that way too. So I'm going to pull that experience from this DNA palette. So you see how kind of cool your soul is.
Only to find out that you yourself were great-great-great-grandma.
That's the plot twist, right?
So you're actually pulling from your own palette.
Isn't that the plot twist, right? So, but that is, your soul is so intelligent when it designs that body. So never hate your body. Never be like, I hate, because you created that for an experience, right? And so that's what you have to go in it to really experience that spiritual understanding. Only through striving can wisdom be found, hidden as it is within darkness. And yet in that darkness, the essence of the flame exists, and in that true wisdom found. So we talk about that a lot. The friction. So these things that happen in your life that cause friction, the uncomfortableness of the human, we want to try to avoid it. But that's the things that allow the friction. It's like when you're in your darkest moments emotionally, that's when you're striking that match to create that friction of understanding or wisdom.
Because when, think about it this way, think about, and Layla, I'm looking at your comment here and I'm trying to find a way to answer that as well. But think about it this way. It's like, if you've experienced pain or suffering or betrayal or whatever negative emotion or experience that might be, and and as many of us, in fact all of us, I think I can quite safely say we will continue patterns, and we're still in that stage of our existence, right? So, and when we've had enough, I always say, when you're so sick and tired of being sick and tired, right, then you're going to find your breakthrough. So it's almost like in that moment of when you know what you don't want, your spirit automatically knows what you do want. So you don't even have to say, like, let's say if you've experienced abuse, right? You'd want more gentleness. If you experienced only anger, you would want more tenderness, right? So you're going to want, remember, we're living in a world of polarities. So really, when you know what you don't want, you automatically, on some level, whether you are consciously aware of it or not, are sending off sparks of desire of what you do want. So what we need to do, instead of focusing on that which you don't want, whether it's thinking about, oh, well, how can you tell me that, Chantelle? I've got my minus $300,000 in the bank, right? How can you tell me? I'm saying, in this moment where you're sitting, you are safe, right? Now, you're not going to change that in the second. But what you can do is you can then think about, wow, how great it would be to go and pet my cat outside now. Or how great it would be to have a nice warm shower. Or to take a walk on the beach, or to call my sister, or whatever the case might be. You don't have to be focusing on the thing that gives you the negative energy all the time. You change your focus. It can be something completely different. Energy is energy. It's not going to discern you were bad mood about that and you were trapped up about that, so only there will. No, if you're trapped up there, you're going to be trapped up there. So what you want to be doing is really finding these amazing ways that you can just find things that you enjoy doing. If it's coloring in, if it's calling your mom, if it gives you 3 minutes of relief from that hellhole you've put yourself in, that might be the little crack of light you need.
And that's the crux, right, for Layla's question. So Layla, I would say to you, the darkness did not create the fear of the peace. You did. Your mind did. And you're the light. So darkness isn't giving you that. Your mind is giving you that, and you're the light. So that's the friction. So I tell this to my students a lot. So when you look at a match, right, a matchbook, a match without the matchbook, it has everything it needs to strike the light, but it can't do that unless it's brushed up against that matchbook, right? There's friction there.
Yeah.
So the mind is creating, and sometimes that's what Shanti was saying with the vibration. You're creating the fear. What is fear? False evidence appearing real. It's also creating the peace. As Yeshua said, heaven and hell both light inside of you, right? It's you. You're the light that's creating that. And when you come into a spiritual, everybody often thinks they're going to walk into like a spiritual practice and all of a sudden life's just going to be rainbows and butterflies. No, sometimes you get pushed deeper into your shit.
Sometimes, all the time.
Yes, every time. Yes. It's not when it's cracked. It becomes a horror show, because then you realize, you have that realization that you are the one causing everything, because you are the creator, right? And so and it's like, well, shit, it's so much easier just to blame it on other people, right? Now I got to take responsibility. But then when you start to understand at a deeper level, it doesn't mean that you actually like everything's fixed. I mean, that's why we're still here. We're still trying to figure it out, right? We still get caught in those patterns. But when you go, okay, as Shanti's saying, I'm going to now course correct that vibrational frequency so that it changes, right? It changes. And because it's all coming from you, and that's your superpower. And when you start to realize that, it changes you, and that's your superpower. You're the creator.
Just use, the whole thing is you had to be reminders for each other. If and that's the whole thing, just because someone is successful doesn't mean that they're taking away anyone else's success. That's what we've got to realize. We are all here to create our own enjoyment in life. And depending on our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our consciousness, basically, is where we're going to put ourselves in terms of law of attraction. We must never forget, law of attraction governs this planet.
Yeah.
And law of attraction states energy will always attract its same vibration. Boom. So you are going to now, if you're in the vibration of negativity, and all you think about is, and all you do is watch murder documentaries the whole day and talk to your friends about murder and meet people who had terrible things happen, what do you think? You're putting yourself in that place. What do you think you're either going to see, experience, whatever? So it's up to you to decide to make different choices. When we make different choices, we're going to get a different outcome. And it's so important to follow that inner impulse, because the inner impulse that kind of like gets you to not tempt you, but kind of nudges you in a direction. Well, why don't you go to the beach? Why don't you take a walk? Why? You go, nah, nah, nah. And the more you deny your inner impulse, the softer the voice becomes. And eventually you're not even hearing anything anymore. Your body is riddled with pain. Your mind is riddled with negativity, you know. So it's very easy to get caught in. But it should be easier to follow the path of ease, because that's actually the natural path to follow. We've just got to retrain ourselves into how we do that again.
Absolutely. I'm glad that makes sense, Layla. Yeah, because that's I think that's, it's, and I'll give an example too. Sometimes the things that we're attracting in are very subconscious. And I've talked about this before. I grew up in a narcissistic system. I learned love at a very young age, that love was abuse. And so I spent my 20s, in my early 30s, in and out of very abusive relationships, to the point where I was with a man one night where I almost lost my life. He strangled me, and it was a crazy thing. And that put me into trauma therapy. And when I went through trauma therapy mixed with my yoga practice, I started to recognize where some of my subconscious, it was me that was the common denominator in all these situations. I was attracting this. And so through the therapy, through the yoga, I started to slowly course correct that. And I knew that I had fixed something about my subconscious patterning when I attracted my boyfriend I have now, because he's very healthy, very loving, very kind, and so it was all of a sudden that patterning of that law of attraction had shifted. Right. And so it wasn't that God was punishing me by having these abusive relationships. It was a pattern that I now needed to course correct and change about my law of attraction. And I did that by doing the work, by creating the friction, by going into trauma therapy, by really getting deep into myself through the talk therapy, EMDR therapy, yoga, all that kind of stuff, to really break apart. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was an overnight thing in the realization that I was the problem, but the whole transformation wasn't overnight. It took work. As he says here, it's the striving. It took the striving for me to create those new patterns, healthier patterns. And then I saw the result of that work when I stopped attracting abusive men. I just stopped attracting them. They weren't coming around anymore, right? And so that's how we gauge. So when we look at the micro of the world around us, that's how we can kind of gauge where we are sometimes in our life, is by what patterns are showing up around us, if that makes sense. So, all right. So he goes on to say the kingdom of shadows was that octave of vibration in which were placed those brought from lower cosmic cycles when the gateway was opened by man, which they talked about. They opened portals, right, to bring in lower vibrational energies, right? Call demons, call whatever you want there, so that these portals will open. Well, again, with the micro, we also have these portals within ourselves, right? We have issues with Muladhara. That can the seven lords, as he called them, can be entry points as well that we have to manage, right? And if we're not going to take care of that portal, then the shadows might creep in a little bit too much. But once we recognize that shadow, if we present it to the light and heal it, we can change it. So he goes on to say, let's see, this was a third or polarium cycle, and the delvers in darkness were men who loved material power rather than to devote their lives to spiritual things, which he's saying that was in the past. But Doriel, I'd love to talk to you now, buddy, because this is very much what's happening now as well. History is repeating itself. The beings called up were formless, as only the consciousness was brought up, and the bodies must be formed from here, which we just spoke about. They, like the elementals, being separated from their own cosmic consciousness and its creative power, were not able to combine with the cycle because they had not developed its primal curves. Only by the will of man and the extracting of spirit from blood could they take form. So that, to me, gives a little bit more clarity as to why they do certain rituals, right? Yes. They need that sacred DNA in order. They can't get they don't have the higher, you know, as Mr. Fox talks about the organic portals, they don't have that higher, the energy cycles of the higher 7 lords, the chakra points, in order to formulate the Shakti like you and I do. And so they have to go through rituals in order to cheat the system. So, you know, the more that you read this stuff, you're like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Now knowledge, the Cassiopeans say that knowledge is power, knowledge protects. You all of a sudden start to, when you can understand what the enemy is doing, then you're able to counteract that influence into your life a little bit better. The masters drove most of them back through the lower gateway, but there were some who remained in the place built for them, coming forth only when the name was called and the blood sacrifice was offered. Hello, Bohemian Grove, right? Like, here we are. They took that on the apparent form of man, but their actual appearance was the body of a man or a woman with a serpent head. They were able to cast a hypnotic glamour around them and appear to assume the features of man. You know, they know how to MK Ultra mind control in different forms. They're not just talking about the extreme, like Clockwork Orange MK, because all of us have been victims of MK Ultra mind control, not like Clockwork Orange, but through the media, through the way they're able to hypnotize and get you to pay attention and, look over here, not over there. So in this, which forms the basis of the belief of the hypnotic powers of the serpent, they assume the forms of the leaders who were secretly slain. Some people might think this is science fiction, but we know it's not. All right. And gradually, they and the men who called them back over the control of the nations. So these people who are controlling our nations are not the original people. They're not necessarily clones. They're actual shapeshifters who know how to hypnotize. All right. They had all the appearances of men that were there, but there was one word they were unable to pronounce. This was taught by the masters to man, and it became a law that every man who had office must pronounce this word before he placed people on each lunar month. So that's what they did in the Atlantean times, and they were aware of this. There was a word that they could not pronounce, these reptiles. And so if they couldn't pronounce it, they wouldn't let them into office. Maybe this is why the powers that be don't want us reading the Emerald Tablets, because he's going to give us the word here, you guys. We won't get that word. All right. Where was I? If he failed, he was killed. This forced them from place among men, and gradually they were forgotten, but some still exist in their own place, unable to enter because man has forgotten the rites which summoned him. The word was Kenogen. I don't know how Doriel found this Kenogen. I don't know how he found this word. But he did. So anyway, Kenogen is the word that they would have to get the reptiles to pronounce, and if they couldn't pronounce it, they would kill them. Now, Doriel is under the impression that there's not many left on this earth. We know otherwise. So I have never heard a politician or a world leader say Kenogen, though. So maybe we should start asking them.
Kenogen.
Kenogen.
How do you spell it?
Kininingen. Kenogen. Kenogen. Again, take that with a grain of salt, because I don't know where Doriel got that word from. So, but that's interesting, right?
I can say it's so I'm not a Lizzie.
Exactly, Kenogen. There we go. Now, all you guys, I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh so hard if all of our viewers are gonna be walking around going, "Hey, say this word." All of our single friends are gonna go on a date. They're gonna be sitting on the opposite side of the table at dinner and be like, "Kenogen, can you say it?" That's the first round. Kenogen. Yeah, that's right.
The poor guy's foreign, so he can't say it. Immediately you accuse him of then being a lizard.
Kenogen. Yeah, Kenogen. And you gotta give way to accents to people. So
Kenogen.
Yeah. A Southerner would say Kenogen. It's canogen.
Canogen.
So you got to give way to the accents as well. So, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
The masters of either white or black magic may summon them, but only a white master may have the power to control them. They rule through fear, conquer fear, and they have gained the light. I don't know if I agree with that. That Doriel translation, because obviously the light, it's according to the law of one, the light doesn't want to control anyone because the light respects free will, right? The light respects free will. So I don't really agree with Doriel said that, but that's what he said, that both light and darkness can control them. I think light can ask them to say Kenogen, but I don't think that the light, anybody of the light, wants to control or take away another person's consent or free will, because that's what the darkness does, right? So that is something I don't agree with Doriel, but that's okay. Thoth states that he has been to Chantelle and even looked within the sixth dimension. They move only through angles and never through curves. They project consciousness, which tries to penetrate the sixth dimension, will infallibly be attacked by the hounds of the barrier. Only by moving through space in circles can you evade the hounds. Only the circles is protection. Return to the body if no avail. However, one does not stumble upon them accidentally. So that's the warning he talked about in more detail about trying to leapfrog into the next dimension. Thoth had this experience in the past, and it taught him caution again. He attempted to pass the gateway, and the guardians came at him. He knew the law of circles and angles and evaded them, returning to his body and completing the protection. The hounds of the barrier do not literally devour or destroy the soul, but bind it from further manifestation until this cosmic cycle is completed. Then it may combine with the next cosmic consciousness. Even after the completing his protection, he must be careful not to approach the sixth dimension in angular movement. Thoth repeats again and again his warnings about movement through curves. He also tells them not to attempt to pass Chantelle before the time. So again, that's that warning. Don't try to leapfrog or get out of this before it's time. He also tells how to recognize the guardians. And that's the end of Doriel's commentary and translation. Of course, Thoth, if you missed last time we did this, again, go back and rewatch, because Thoth does go into way more detail than Doriel did. So yeah. So now we've learned something very valuable from this, and it's pronunciation matters.
Oh goodness, I am so screwed.
I know, right? Again, you got to play action, guys. So just because someone has an accent doesn't mean they can't pronounce it in their accents. But I want if we can catch a reptile, let's bring them in and see if they can say that word, just to experiment.
Listen, I think any Asian person, just from having lived on the continent for a while, would probably have a battle saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
Most Afrikaans people who can't speak English would probably have a battle. But hey, okay, there are rest case. I'm so glad. Okay, let me not go into further detail on my fellow countrymen. We love each other dearly. Okay, guys. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Morné. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to share something, because something was highlighted for me the whole time, and I feel I need to share this before we end today. And I think Lila also spoke about darkness can create certain emotions. We all need to remember that, and Chantelle, I know I've learned it from you, darkness, what is darkness? Darkness is but the absence of light. So the darkness is light. But it's
that's
still
the not
light.
Knowing. Yeah. That's the being
light.
lost.
It's just light being the absence of itself. So it's like the darkness will call upon light. So it's not like the darkness creates, but the light within darkness will create itself through darkness. So there is a place for darkness. That's where we find that solitude. That's where we find that stillness. That's where we find our creativity. So it's not always bad.
Yeah.
So darkness is
the womb.
There is power in that. So I just wanted to share with people that, remember, even there's nothing that's not the light. The light will always come through. And if darkness starts to create, it's only darkness that's calling upon itself and creation to come back. So at the end of the day, God is in control.
Always has been.
Yeah.
Always will be.
It's that light within that darkness. It's like when
Still is presently, even if you don't believe it. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, guys. Thank you, Bryce. And we'll see you on Wednesday with the Sophia Code again. And guys, I'll see you tomorrow with Alice Parola at 4 p.m. our time, which I think is 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we have Alice Parola on, again, borderline personality disorder, debunking the mental health label. So really want to encourage as many of us as possible to watch and share these shows. They're so important now, especially with all of this crap coming out that we've never been speaking about before. And suddenly we're understanding that a lot of these mental health issues are from trauma that a lot of these people have experienced through family trauma and incest and SRA and. So for us to realize where these, it's not some medical condition that just happens to some people. I mean, I'm not saying that never ever happens. I don't know that. But the more we're learning, the more we're understanding. Hello, Mama. Oh, Morné's cat. The more we're understanding that these really crazy mental conditions, that a lot of us push aside and stick people in crazy houses for, are really trauma and are coming from lots of family stuff usually, and needs a lot of love and caring and embracing. In the same way a person who's got cancer, if we think about what causes our cancer, it's also trauma, stuff like that. Our illness is all coming from trauma. So some of us manifest them in our bodies, others in our minds, so to speak. So let's educate ourselves on the rest of our brothers and sisters and what they're going through, and how we can all, and this is how I say, this is how we all link arms and stand up together, is by understanding, and all of these things we understand. Cool. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a beautiful evening or afternoon.
Ciao,
See
everybody.
you. Bye.